Now we want to know how to do our competitive analysis and come up with the finding briefs, because that's what would be the output of this process. Okay, so let's get started and take a look at the steps. And the steps are from this UX strategy book. Um, Jamie Levy explained 4 steps there. One, scan, scheme, color code each column for high and lows. Okay, I need to add that. Okay, these are all about that matrix, that competitive matrix that you've already created. Okay, so you need to scan, color code, and all those things. I'm going to explain in details each of these steps. Then the second step, creating logical groupings for comparison. Third step is analyze each competitor by benchmarking product attributes and best practice and all those things. And this is actually, we've talked about a little bit about SWOT analysis. Kind of refer back to the same thing, but we added to the end of those columns. Or my suggestion is to add it instead of those columns, add it to your report. We're going to talk about that part. And finally, writing the competitive analysis finding brief. So findings brief would be the report that you're going to create at the end. So you need to do all these 3 first steps, and then the 4th step would be to write them down, and then you submit the report to your manager or something. Okay, so let's go through them one by one. Step 1, scanning, scheming, color coding, and all those things. Okay, so here what we want to do, we try to find meaningful patterns. We study our competitors, and when we study like more, we find more important things about our competitors, and this is a good place to try and see patterns. Like, is it like this that more investment would result into a better product design, or is it like causalities, for example, or different interpretations? Like, is it like this that because this is a very well-known company and brand because of the other products that they offer, that's why the product is so successful in the market? And is it maybe we are looking for some other patterns, like because this computer offers kind of ecosystem instead of a product, that's why users find all different requirements, all different needs satisfied there. So that's the reason that they are so successful. So basically, we are trying to find patterns either for their success or failure. So we want to know everything about them. So that's why we use some kind of color coding. Something which is really interesting for us, maybe we use those good points, we use green color or blue color, or something are really tricky and complex, we go with the red color. So color code could be defined based on your project, based on what you are trying to do the analysis. Sometimes something is not possible. For example, for a startup business, you might color code them in a purple color. I don't know. Okay, color choice is yours, but try to figure out what types of grouping here would be helpful. So that would lead us to the next step. Step 2, creating logical grouping for comparison. And here, by grouping, like, we try to find some similarities, like well-known brands, established companies. We might put them in one category, or like some products are just browser extensions. We cannot compare features that's been offered through browser extension with the mobile app, because they're totally they work totally differently. Like the logic would be totally different. So that's why it's very important to come up with those groupings of our competitors. So simple reason is that we want to compare apples to apples, oranges to oranges. So we don't want to get like lost here in this comparison. So but we want to make sure we are on solid ground and the things that we are comparing are really comparable. Otherwise, we would have a table full of empty spots, which wouldn't help us at all. So, couple of examples. Rank your direct competitors from most rating to least rating to your value proposition. So this is a kind of suggestion here. But let's take a look at these groupings here, okay, and subgroupings. Like for example, desktop versus mobile platform. So that could be one of the ways, or web browser extensions, or different web applications, for example. Content type, is it kind of editorial content, or is it user generated content, or is it like e-commerce, is like different types of, or blog type things, or a combination of those things. So we want to come up with some kind of categorization here, so we would be able to compare the right things with each other. Or horizontal market, like Amazon, like Walmart, like these websites that you can see that there are some third parties there that they are selling their products as well through the same platform. And or vertical market, like for example health services or clothing, banking, those are like vertical market, like you connect through the website to the service provider right directly through the website that they have. So it's not kind of third party involved there. Or a business model, for example, are they like subscription based, like you pay monthly fee, or it's kind of free service that you need to watch some ads. So you cannot compare free service with a paid service, because the business model would be totally different. So here, that's what we want to do, and it's very important to do this kind of grouping, like with thinking. Sometimes one of these grouping wouldn't work simply for our product. Sometimes it's very crucial to compare them based on something else. Okay, these are just examples here. Okay. Your goal is to make it easier to identify which factors give other products their competitive advantage or competitive edge. Okay, so this is the main goal here. If we compare similar products, they use similar business models, similar platform, so we would be able to identify that, okay, this is the factor that makes these products successful, because we compare them to all similar products. That's much easier to find out what's that winning card, what's that feature that makes this one much more successful product. And you are looking for commonalities, differences, so that you and your team can truly understand certain products are more successful than others because of a reason. Yeah. So basically, that was about step 2, like trying to find patterns and compare and identify that, okay, these are the things that we have. So here, maybe in our report we can come up with some kind of side-by-side comparison, and then we could have some screenshots and then compare that, okay, these are the features that these products offer. This one is much more successful, and the reason is that because, for example, this is much more like clean, minimal UI design, for example. That's the reason that it's not that much, like that makes it much more understandable for the users. So or for example, when we compare different like competitors product page, for example, and there we understand that, okay, those product page that offer fewer choices, those are the converting the users better. Okay, so more conversion rate because of the simplicity and fewer choices. So that's the key. That's the finding that we're gonna have from this kind of comparison. So what I mean is that to look for patterns and try to be aware of all these details and try to figure out what result in success, what results in failure, so we can compare and like have kind of take up here. And step 3, analyze each competitors by benchmarking product attributes. That's what we basically done before, like through our SWOT analysis in the last column of our competitive matrix. Okay, identify, examine key facets so that comparisons can be made. Okay, so if we have direct competitors, we might use a different way. If we have indirect competitors, we might we might be looking. We need to be looking for different things. Okay, find the competitive parity among their products. When we have competitive direct competitors, define the bottom line criteria that future customers will expect when your team deliver on the value proposition. So this is important. If we get back, if I want here, I want to remind you of the gains. Like when we were working on our customer profile, we were talking about customer gains, and that was one of the things, like required gains. We had required gain, expected gains, and desired gains, and unexpected gains. Here we are talking about those expected and required gains. Like what are those features, what are those attributes that we need to have in our product? Otherwise, we wouldn't be able to compete with our competitors, direct competitors, especially here. Cross attribute comparison, like those patterns that I mentioned, most innovative would be most popular, or widest selection would result in highest purchase quantity. Usually it's not like this, but like fewer selection would usually result in a better conversion. But yeah, these are the things that you need to figure out by comparing these things. And when we have indirect competitors, here we need to have these in mind, this issue that indirect competitors must probably either their value proposition is different from ours, or their idea is different from ours, or their target user would be different from ours. So most probably we deal with indirect competitors if we are going into, like, we have an innovative value proposition. So this would be a case for us, analyzing how these digital products offer alternative ways to solve a problem. That's what we want to learn from these indirect competitors, and looking for trends, patterns, gaps. Here that goes back to that positioning map. Okay, if there's a market gap that we could target, and overall sense of the look of the landscape, basically. So we've done kind of these things, and those were the starting point. Now we need to elaborate more, articulate more, and focus on the details, basically. And yes, finding opportunities to create value by either innovating or optimizing on the best UX and business model practices. So these are the things that we want to learn. If something like come up from the usability perspective, that's perfect. But we need to know that at this point of time, we are focusing on our value proposition, and our value proposition is different from our UX design. Like we cannot compete with usually we cannot compete with our established competitors with just a better UX design. What I mean here is that they already their customers, they have their customer base, strong customer relationship, and we cannot just work with our like we cannot sell only with the better UX design. So definitely a killer UX design would be a part of our solution, but that's not the value proposition. That's what I mean here. So you also want to extract these golden nuggets as recommendations to put in your brief. Golden nuggets. What are those golden nuggets? If you remember, in the our customer profile, we talked about desired gains. So those desired gains are basically golden nuggets, the solutions that our competitors are using, the features that they have, those attributes that they offer, and it's kind of rather new solution, and our users, the customers, would like to have, would like to see those things in all other products as well. So we need to know what are those golden nuggets, so we make sure that we have something better than those solutions basically in our products. Okay, again, this is not the value proposition, because our value proposition would be basically the competitive edge that we are offering, and that's something that makes us unique, makes our solution unique if we compare it to the product. The golden nuggets are the features that are already there, and if we don't have them in our products, we don't have any chance to compete with their products. So basically, either we should have them or have a better version or better design of them in our solution. And there are a couple of questions here to ask ourselves, okay, and to answer them in our benchmarking section. Okay, so how is it competing against our value proposition? If it's a direct competitor, or if yes, what's the doing great or particularly badly? If it's an indirect competitor, is it competing with a similar solution, or is it targeting a similar customer segment? So what's make them relevant to our competition? So we need to focus on that part and see what we can take out from that comparison. And what are the big takeaways the stakeholders should know if she only reads these cells? So here is about reporting, okay? And if we have one part of the reporting, like instead of the stakeholders going through all the columns to read about our competitors, we usually ask them to read that last column, or we have the last column in our report as kind of separate part. So that would be the summarize of all those columns, or the patterns that we found, the important issues that we found, the opportunities that our competitors could take advantage of, or all those things. Okay, so then we go to the last step 4, and that's where we start writing the competitive analysis finding briefs. Here is the place that we try to come up with our recommendations. It should be a part, the text that easy to read. It's kind of summary, easy to read. It's not that much lengthy part. It's easy, short, concise. How to move forward with our solution? Do we need to do a pivoting? Do we need to add a feature? Do we need to focus on something else? Is it like the result of the comparison, what we've learned from this comparison? And we need to articulate our unbiased view of the marketplace. Okay, so the dangers that we are facing there, the chances that we have to face our competition. And well, it's very important in this findings brief as well to zoom out and see the big picture and explain the big picture to our stakeholders, to people who read our report basically. So there's a couple of questions to answer. Which competitors directly appeal to our customer segment? Of those competitors, how do you think customers discover them? What products offer the best user experience and business model? That's also something that to learn from, or business model. What particularly we learn from the business model that they offer, from the user experience that they offer? Which part is easy for the users? That could be a key that we want to have in our products. How is it doing something unique? Who is doing something unique, or what's working well for them? What do they? So basically, different questions. That these are just some triggering questions. So you might ask much more other questions as well, and we try to answer them in our finding brief. But I have a suggestion for the structure as well, like the kind of standard report structure for our findings brief. Start with a summary. It's kind of abstract of the result. Like if the user read just part, the reader just read that part, could understand everything that we've explained and discussed in this basically brief in this report. Introduction, methods, how we've done the research and where we found the competitors, how the number of competitors we compared, which indirect competitors, direct competitors, and everything. And then finding part, which would be the core of our report. Okay, tons of screenshots, notes about our competition. And the structure of this part is very important as well. Are we going to go with direct competitors, indirect competitors, or are we going to go with the grouping that we had in step 2 and 3? Okay, so that's another thing that we want to go with. Or if we want to go, instead of direct competitors or indirect competitors, do we want to go with established competitors or new players? That's another grouping that we can have here. So basically, structuring these findings totally depend on the project that we have in our hand, on the competitors that we have in the market, on the grouping that we've done before in our previous steps, basically. So that's very important part there. And then at the end, we're gonna do that kind of recommendation part, discussion and recommendation. Okay, so what's the takeaway, what we understood, if we want to move forward, all those recommendations, if we want to introduce some kind of pivoting, or we want to change our priorities, or all those things, and finally the references. So that was basically our competitive analysis part, and we've learned how to do that competitive analysis. So basically, based on the number of pages, I would say like it highly depends on the number of competitors and those findings parts, because that's the, like before that or after that we don't have more than 2 or 3 pages, but if findings could be something like between 5 pages to 25 pages, something like that. So it highly depends on this finding part, because there are tons of screenshots there and analysis, arrows, tags on the notes, and all those things on those screenshots. So that's making a lot of changes there.